Are you a shoe type of person who enjoys putting on a good pair of shoes? Or are you more of a barefoot kind of person who likes to walk around barefoot? Well, this week's Torah portion, there's much ado about feet. You see, at this incredible moment of encounter between God and Moses, when Moses famously observes the burning bush that is not being extinguished and realizes something extraordinary is here, he approaches it, and God, in his voice that emanates from the burning bush, first thing he tells him is, remove your shoes from your feet. Now, in case you think that this was a one-time phenomenon, history repeated itself about 40 years later with Joshua, Moses' successor, who, upon entry to the land of Israel, sees the walls of Jericho, these formidable walls. How is he going to conquer it? And here he encounters an angel who tells him the same thing: remove your shoes from your feet, because God is about to speak to you. So what we see here is this pattern that when God is about to talk to you, you got to take your shoes off. For those of you who prefer walking around barefoot, these two stories might just be a good source for you. However, on the other hand, we have some very emphatic sources in Jewish literature that talk about the importance of shoes. The Talmud says you should sell your house if that's what it takes to be wearing shoes. In another source, listen to this, the Talmud says there are 7 things that a person is judged by in heaven. One of them is, will be held accountable if we denied our feet from having shoes on them. That is how important wearing shoes apparently is. Then, every morning we make a blessing in the series of morning blessings, and we thank God for providing me with all of my needs. She'asa li kol tzorki. Now, the blessing doesn't specify what those needs are, but you know what our sages tell us? It's a blessing to thank God for the shoes on my feet. Now, how do the shoes on my feet amount to everything that I need? So here's a beautiful understanding and interpretation of that. The way the Torah sees the universe, it's divided into 4 layers. The lowest being the mineral, earth. Above that is the organic, plant life. Above that, the animal kingdom, and above that, the human. And it's a chain. Each one supports the other. Out of the earth grows that which grows. The animal consumes that which grows, and the human is on top of the chain. Most shoes, especially in Talmudic times, were made of leather coming from the animal. And what the donning of shoes, therefore, is about is man demonstrating his mastery over all of creation. And so the blessing that we make every morning when we thank God for providing me with everything that I need means thank you for giving me all the resources and the tools to be able to be the master, the steward over creation. As God said to Adam and Eve, I am placing you in the garden to protect it and to develop it. You have to be the masters of the world that I created. The shoes are a demonstration of man's mastery over the universe. Aha! Why then does God tell Moses to remove his shoes when he's about to communicate with him at the burning bush? The same thing to Joshua. And furthermore, when the priests ministered in the holy temple, they also did not wear shoes on their feet. And until this very day, when we pray at a sacred and holy place, like, for example, when we pray at the Ohel of the Rebbe, we remove our shoes. So what gives? The answer is that when you are standing on sacred ground, one completely surrenders to the mastery of God. Here it's not about the mastery of man. who are the agents of God. But here, the mastery of God is so seamless and so complete that we just surrender and make space for the mastery of God. When we're not in an overtly sacred place, we need to activate our agency as being the masters, designated by God to be masters over the world. But when we're in a sacred and holy place, it's the mastery of God that flows directly, and so we remove the shoes as a non-obstruction for that energy to be able to flow through ourselves and into the universe. That's one understanding of why it's important to both wear the shoes and take them off when we're at a sacred place. Here's another beautiful Hasidic interpretation. What shoes really do is it creates a barrier between us and the earth beneath us. It's like a firewall to protect us. Spiritually, what that means is we need to protect ourselves from the harmful negative elements of the universe, and that's what the shoes represent. But when we're standing in a sacred place, there's no need for that protection, because in a place like the temple, or when God is about to communicate to you, or when you're standing at a place like the Ohel, the world is not an obstruction to the divine. The world is a seamless conduit of divine energy, and therefore there's no need to take the protective measure of wearing shoes at a sacred place. One final thought. Interestingly, the prophet describes the final redemption as a splitting of the waters of the world, and we will be led through to the final redemption wearing shoes. Now, one would think that once we are entering into the era of redemption, when godliness is manifest in the world, there's no longer any need for shoes. We don't need to protect ourselves. There is no hostility in the world. There is no toxicity in the world. There's no negativity in the world. Why then would we be marching towards redemption with our shoes? And the answer is, the final redemption is the result of our wearing shoes, which is the result of the fact that we took measures to protect ourselves throughout all the years of exile. We took the measures to preserve the integrity of our spiritual connection by creating the firewall between the negative elements of the universe and the positive elements of the universe. And that becomes part of the transformation of the world. And that is why we bring our shoes with us as a demonstration that we got to this point. The evolution of the universe to the point of redemption is the result of people being able to decipher and to distinguish between the redeemable aspects of the world and those things which need to be kept at abeyance, which is what the shoes provide us with. So that's the story of the shoes. To go back to the original question, do you prefer to wear them? Do you prefer to go barefoot? The good news is there's a time for both, so no need to fret. Thank you for joining us this week. Shabbat Shalom. See you next week.